Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Bipolar Lines, the podcast where two spouses talk about navigating life, loving someone with bipolar disorder. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Laura. And today we have, I think, a really good topic.
Well, hello, beautiful people. So it's me, Brooke, and I am recording audio only right now. It is Tuesday night, July 7th at 9:14 p.m. And you're getting me to give a brief update and let you know what's going on. Unfortunately, if you're not in the Facebook group or you don't follow Laura on TikTok, then you likely haven't seen the updates. But Cody is in his second hospitalization in the last 2 weeks for mania. So he's back in the hospital trying to get this figured out. We're not really sure what is happening because this episode is presenting wildly different than it ever has in the past 8 episodes that they have been through. So unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to record. And then I came down with shingles. So I was down for the count this past weekend. They got home from their camping trip, Laura and family did, on Sunday. And pretty much as soon as they got home, things hit the fan. So unfortunately, Laura and I were not able to record a new episode given the state of Cody's mental health. And obviously, we just want them to focus on him and Laura, focus on her so that he can get better and she has the mental capacity to, exist in her day-to-day life, take care of her children and work. So we are going to replay a listener favorite, which is all about ambiguous grief. I've seen a lot of Facebook commentary about this, and I think it's just an important reminder to name what you feel and recognize that ambiguous grief is real. And once you know what it is, I feel like it has less power over you, and it's a little bit easier to process.
So, Laura, let's just dive in. What is ambiguous grief?
Yeah, so ambiguous grief is a term that describes the grief experienced when someone is physically present but emotionally or mentally absent, which basically says it all. When your partner is in a mood state like mania or depression, they are there with you physically, but it's not the person necessarily who you fell in love with, who's your best friend. They're different.
Yeah, psychologically, they're not there.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In the same way that, you know them to be. I think it's really hard for people when they're first in relationships or they're very confused. I think that's really hard for people because I know night and day who baseline Cody is, who manic Cody is, who depressed Cody is. It's all very clear to me now. But I've been with him for over 20 years, so I think it's really hard. What would you speak on that, Brooke?
Yeah, I would say it's absolutely, if you don't understand your person's baseline, then it is hard to determine what state they're in, what mood state they're in. I've talked about this before on TikTok. Ambiguous grief is essentially waking up day in and day out. Your person's beside you, but you don't know them. Like the person that you loved is not with you, but you're seeing them. They're interacting in your daily life, but you cannot reach them, right? And I think it is a healthy process as long as you do this in a healthy way, I should say, to grieve the loss of your person because you don't have access to them anymore. I did it. And I didn't actually know at the time that's what I was doing. Until later, I was like, oh, that's actually what I was doing. Like, I was sad. I was retreating in. I would, push away family, friends. I didn't want to go do anything. I didn't want to, be part of anything. I just wanted to be alone. And that was just the way that I was handling how I was grieving the person that I met and fell in love with and married, because I knew I was never going to get him back fully, period. Even when he's stable, what I'm saying is I'm never going to have him holistically back day in and day out. Those stable periods exist.
Yes, and the reality is they have a severe mental illness. It's not going to go away. So even if they're stable, even if they're in a period of remission, Cody hates that term, but it is a real term in the medical community. Even if they're in any of those, I think Cody hates the term because he too knows it's never going away. This is always something that is there. And I think for them too, this is going off topic slightly, but I know Cody had to grieve it too.
Yeah.
And go through his own process. But that doesn't mean we don't either. And what's also hard about it is you look for your your partner to support you during periods that are difficult, during periods that you're grieving. And when you're grieving them, there is no one to lean on. You said you retreated in, which is possibly why you did that. I would try to tell my family and friends, but because, it goes back to a previous episode of separating your person from the illness, they
Yep.
weren't able to do that. So, that's where you get well-meaning, I think it's well-meaning, family and friends being like, oh, you should leave him. Oh, you should get out. Oh,
Oh,
that
yeah,
sounds
yeah, yeah.
terrible. And I think that's where it comes from. And so, there really is not a lot of people who understand what you're going through. It's like they don't understand that this is not the person you fell in love with, that it's not, but no one can really relate. And so their advice is not really empathetic, even though
Sure,
they think it is. It's just not
sure.
helpful.
Absolutely. I think the other part of this is not just grieving the person, but also grieving the relationship that you had prior to that first episode. That may
Mm-hmm.
seem extreme, but I really think it applies here because depending upon the severity of the episode, usually the first ones that are actually, a manic episode or a depressive episode, like they're pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, the red flag episode, I guess is the best way to acknowledge it, at least for me, because my husband had multiple episodes prior to his big one, but I didn't know that was what was happening. So anyway, after that first episode is when the relationship changed. And of course it's going to change, but I'm grieving what I thought we had, but we actually did have that.
Mm-hmm.
But now I have a different dynamic in my relationship because of this illness.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have my person, right? There's 3 people in the room.
Yes.
There is.
Yes, there absolutely is. And it's also different depending on whether it's mania or depression. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, he's there all the time physically and just in your face, in your face, in your face, in your face. I mean, it's like I can't even get a break. It's just like, who is this guy? Like he's super irritable, snaps at everyone. Oh my gosh.
Well, that's yours, right? Yours was he's in your face. Mine, he's never home. I was never able to keep him home.
Right, that's right.
He
That's
was
right.
gone.
Yeah. So then you
But with
were even
depression, he was always home.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so with the depression, exactly, he was home, and I remember just describing it to everyone like, I might as well be living with a cardboard cutout because
Mhm.
he's here, his body is here, but like, even if I asked him how his day was, it was like he couldn't even expend the energy to speak. It was just gestures, like,
Yeah, yeah.
sorry if you can't see me, I just made a gesture with a facial expression. So yeah, so anyways, that was really hard. It's really hard. There's grief
Mhm.
in both of those, and I think you're right. I'm not sure I knew that's what I was doing at the time either, because people are always like, how did you get through it? How did you cope with this? And we're going to talk about some strategies later, but Brooke, in the moment, I was winging it. You don't know how I did it. And now I think I have some advice for others, as you will toward the end. But
Yeah.
at the time, what do you think? Like, did you feel like you
Yeah.
had a good idea of what to do?
No, you should see my face. This is like are you kidding me? No, I mean, we are all just doing the best that we can do with the information we have at the time,
Yeah.
right? And just trying to get through the day. And I mean to make it through the day with my kids, myself, my job, and keeping my husband alive to the best of my ability because I know I don't have all the control there, right? So no, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. In fact, I will tell you, one thing we haven't talked about is self-harm. I don't think we've talked about that at length. But after my husband was diagnosed, that became his release, was self-harm. Trigger warning here. Give you a minute to figure out if you want to stick with us for a few minutes about this self-harm conversation or not. It wasn't just cutting. It was actually carving words into his thighs.
Gosh.
Yeah. Now that I know and understand what that was doing for him, what I mean by that is self-harm was a way for him to control the pain. So after his diagnosis, after he was grieving, actually not after, but during the process of grieving and understanding this diagnosis, that became his outlet. The first time I heard of that, the first time he told me, I cannot tell you how irate I was. I was so mad at him. But the reason was because he carved the words 10 years. We had been together for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
When he got his diagnosis. And he carved 10 years into his upper right thigh. It made it about me. It made it like I was the problem. It made it like I was going to leave him, but I was still supporting him. It was a lot. My point is grief and ambiguous grief in this regard. Like I went through a lot of trauma with that with him
Yeah.
that I was like, oh my God, I don't even know where to like start. I had to hide all the knives in the house. I had to do all the things, right? It was after that was finally done and he was in therapy and stuff, like I felt like I could breathe, but also I had to like, I don't know, wash my brain out with soap and water kind of thing, because he wasn't in an episode when that was happening, when all of those were happening. He was grieving. So everybody's grief looks different, and I'm not suggesting that self-harm is the way to go by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
But for me, it was, I have to grieve that person because they don't look the same. They don't feel the same. They aren't the same person always that I'm used to, that I fell in love with. That doesn't make me love them any less. It just makes it harder, just makes it different. It makes me grieve my loss.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I talk about this all the time. I have different songs that bring me through different episodes. It's one of my coping mechanisms. When he first started getting these, because we had a period of 10 years that he didn't have one. And then in 2016, it
You're
kicked
talking
up
about an
again.
episode.
Yes, sorry, an episode. Thank you for clarifying. A manic episode, to be more specific. But I remember during that one, we had 2 little kids, and we both were working, but he was the main guy. Like, he was the main breadwinner, and that's kind of how we set up our agreement. Like, I would work part-time, and I was doing all the cooking, and then he was the one working full-time. And that's how I thought the rest of our life was going to go, raising kids, at least during that stage. And then in 2016, I mean, he goes into a manic episode. He loses his job at the time. And it's just like, was really overwhelming, because then I'm like, oh no, like the money I'm making is not going to cover all the bills, basically. And there was this song, it was like, I need you, I need you, I need you right now. I need you right now. Like, I'll have to look it up. Now I want to remember what it is, but it was like, don't let me down or something. And I go back to that song now, and I'm like, yikes. Like, I'm in such a different place than I was at the time, because he wasn't letting me down. Like, if he could not be in an episode, he wouldn't choose it. He always says, I would never choose this. And so that was one stage, right? It was like, okay, I just need him back, so everything gets back to normal. I just need us to get through this, and he'll be back, and we'll all be back to normal, and it'll be the way that it used to be. So
Which is like the denial part of grief.
That was, yeah, you're right. Exactly. And you know what? He did come back. I always get him back. Like, people are like, will he ever be himself again? So like you said, yes, like we get that person back, but again, it's not the same as it was. I mean, because we always know they're going to have bipolar disorder, So he did come back in the psychological and physical sense, and then he dropped into a depressive episode. And then I really didn't have him. I didn't even have him. Like, he's very affectionate. He's a very affectionate person, almost too much. Oh my God. He has no embarrassment in public at all, but where I'm like, don't look at me, don't look at me, don't look at me.
You're like this, cover your face.
Yes.
And he's like, but I love you. I love you.
Yeah. Then in depression, he just wasn't there. Like, he didn't touch me. So anyway, I mean, it's just like 2 different stages of grief then, like lots of grief.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that, yes, what you just said is really key, like lots of stages of grief, and that grieving your person during an episode is okay. Like, allowing yourself to be sad, or allowing yourself to feel those feelings, whatever those feelings may be, that's actually healthy. That is a good way of processing your own emotions and feelings while your person is in an episode. And I know also, we've talked about this before, that we don't have time to do anything for us when our person's in an episode, right? So the duality here exists, but 2 things can be true at the same time. I say this a lot, and I think it is so incredibly true.
It is.
You cannot have time to deal with anything relative to you. What I mean by that is like self-care, but you can also make the time and space to handle and process and grieve and be angry, sad, mad, frustrated, pissed off, you name it. Allow yourself the time and space to feel those feelings, because as we've talked about, for the most part, you're going to get a version of your person back. This is limited to a time and space, right? And if you don't, and you bottle all of these feelings up, it will build, hands down, without a doubt, it will build into resentment.
Yes.
Period. It will.
Yes. Resentment, to me, when people feel, you're allowed to feel whatever you feel, but if you get to the point that you're resentful, that's when I notice that people are done. Like, and I never wanted to stop loving him. I never wanted to reach a point that I was just so full of hatred, or like not even hatred, but just resentfulness, like
Mm-hmm.
that then I knew that would cause me not to want to be with him. So yeah, dealing with those feelings is key. And also just educating yourself on bipolar disorder. If you haven't listened to that episode of Separating Your Person from the Illness, I highly recommend it, because that's really helpful in not building that resentment too.
Yes, absolutely. So we've even
Yeah.
touched on two things: navigating ambiguous grief, right? That's what we're talking about. We've said acknowledge the grief, recognize how you're feeling, acknowledge it to yourself. And also, I would say some people do better writing in a journal or a notebook. If journal's a scary word, get loose leaf paper. I don't care. Write it down. Whatever it takes to get those thoughts and feelings out of your head and onto paper. Sometimes just seeing it, people with ADHD like myself, it sometimes requires me to like see the words from my head onto paper for it to feel like it's been processed. So writing it down is a good way to also acknowledge the grief, right?
I
We've
love
talked about,
journaling.
yeah,
Yeah, I do.
I suck at it.
I have notebooks and notebooks, and honestly, some of them I want to throw away because I'll go back and read what I wrote when he was in an episode, and I'm like, ooh, dang, this I don't want like someone to find those later and think that's like how I actually felt about him all the time, because that's not true. So these journals are like a snippet in time where I just needed to like get it all out.
Get it out.
And they are like, I have this one video where I say hit below the beltiest. Those journal art like entries are definitely that, and not how
They're
I
definitely
actually
hit below the
feel.
belt.
They are, but not how I
Well,
actually
it
feel
could be how you actually felt
at the
during
time.
that episode.
Yeah, definitely.
You're allowed to feel those things. And even
Yeah.
as your person comes out of the episode, your feelings are going to change, most
Mhm.
likely.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. It's okay to acknowledge that. I said earlier that I sucked at journaling, and that's 1000% true, because with ADHD, I have a really hard time creating habits, right?
Mhm.
So I think I'm going to journal. I'm going to journal the heck out of this. And it's day 2, and I'm like, squirrel, I'm not journaling today. In fact, I didn't even think about journaling today. But I will say I do journal the most when I'm angry.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I do. But also I journal when we're going through something new. So if there's a new treatment, a new medication, a new something, I will journal. Journaling doesn't have to be pen and paper, y'all. It could be also like an app where you can speak to text or whatever. Anyway, see, that's another ADHD moment. Brought to you by me.
Yeah, it's so true. I think that, I've told people before, what's interesting to me is that mental illnesses like bipolar disorder, people don't give that same grace that they have with the understanding of like Alzheimer's or dementia. So my grandma got dementia pretty severe when she was older. And, I would visit her in the nursing home and she was physically there, but she was mentally not there. And it wasn't her. It wasn't the same psychologically. It wasn't that same grandma that always showed up for me.
Sure.
And so that was really hard. But like everyone has an understanding that, oh, well, she has dementia. That's why she's acting this way. So in that case, it's almost intuitive for people to look at dementia as the third person. Like that is not even a third person. I don't know, but like everyone understands it's not your real person. So people with dementia too can get very angry. They can get very irritable. They can have a spiteful tongue. They can say and do mean things just because of their dementia or Alzheimer's, and everyone gives them grace. Like, I don't hear anyone being like, oh, my grandma with Alzheimer's is such a B word. I can't believe she said that to me. No one would do that. They would just be like, yeah, my grandma has Alzheimer's and it's really sad. And like, yeah, but with bipolar, we don't extend that same thing for some reason. So I think, that's one of my goals having this podcast with you and spreading awareness is like, we should, if you know a person has a bipolar disorder diagnosis, let's extend the grace. Okay.
Please.
Because,
Absolutely.
please. Yes.
Because you're not helping anybody by not extending the grace, actually.
True. Yeah, true story.
It just makes it worse. And I'm going to second your story by saying, think about it, how people say, oh, my grandmother has dementia or Alzheimer's. Like, that's them separating their grandmother from the illness. That's differentiating the person.
Yeah,
we just don't point it out like that. We all just know.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, well, that's the dementia talking. If you heard somebody say that, I know I have. Oh, that's just the dementia doing the talking. It's the same umbrella concept. It really is. So the more we can hone in and find those similarities relative to physical medicine. I think it is so incredibly important, and not just to spouses, loved ones, caregivers, to the person, because their process of acknowledging this illness is a lot. They're the ones experiencing it, right? So if we could give them more ways to help them accept the diagnosis, I think a physical medicine analogy is really, really helpful. Like you've mentioned Cody and his diabetes. Like if Cody doesn't take his medication for diabetes, like his body will physically have a response.
Right.
If Cody doesn't take medication, mood disorder, medication, whatever that may be under whatever umbrella, his body, his brain will have a response.
Yeah, exactly.
It is the same concept. Because the person who has bipolar disorder has episodes, they get back to their stable self. That is what provides the stigma, the negation of they're not sick.
Agreed. I was just going to say that it's the episodic nature of bipolar disorder, which I think makes it harder. Dementia is just going to be a decline. It's going to be a steady decline. Alzheimer's is just going to be a steady decline, where bipolar is episodic, and a lot of times individuals can get back to a semblance of baseline. And I think that's exactly why there is that stigma around it, and why people don't offer that same understanding and grace to it.
Yeah, because imagine, Billy Bob on the street saw my husband during a manic episode, and he was doing and saying all kinds of things that are not okay, not acceptable. And then 2 months later, sees my husband at Walmart, and he's like, oh, just like, but he's fine?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What is happening?
Exactly.
And then you fill in the blanks because they don't know about the illness, or they don't ask questions. And then all of a sudden you're judged and taken off the neighborhood community list for whatever reason. That didn't happen. I just made that up.
No, but it could happen. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm glad we moved out of my last neighborhood, because I don't know how we would have reintegrated after some stuff that went down. So
not easy. Not easy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we would have dealt with it, but yeah. So even that, oh my gosh, like even even just thinking about that, like having other people see your person not who they are, and then believe that's who they must be.
Yep.
Like I remember Cody was coaching my son's soccer team, and he was in a hypomanic moving into a manic episode. What are you going to do? He signed up as the coach. I'm not going to convince him not to be. But I mean, this is a little league. And in my opinion, he's treating them like college professionals. Like, I mean, he's not necessarily being warm. He's kind of shouting at them at times. I mean, it's just very embarrassing, honestly. And then people got the impression that must be what kind of father he is, what kind of dad he is. And they only saw him during this, season of soccer where he was hypomanic moving into a manic episode. And it's like, well, that's not who he is, but I'm never going to convince you guys otherwise. So.
Right. And that's the hard part for the caregiver. Like, it's like you just said, I'm never going to convince you otherwise. And for me, I've gotten to a place in my life where I'm like, I'm not going to spend the time, effort to try to convince you. Like, I will give you the information. This is what my husband was diagnosed with. This is what it means on a general summarized version, and what he was experiencing that day is part of the illness. And if you can't accept that, and you don't want to go take the time to do the research and, educate yourself, that's willful ignorance on their part.
Yeah.
It is what it is, right? But on the flip side of that, you had a hypomanic Cody. I had a depressed Jeremy coaching softball of our youngest's team, and he would cancel practice after practice.
No, oh God.
Because he was depressed,
right?
And he had a coach, what do you call that? What's the second coach?
An assistant coach.
Thank you. I was like, I've been in sports all my life. Why can't I remember this? Assistant coach. He had two of them that could have shown up and done the work. But because he wasn't there, he felt the burden was being placed on them. So he didn't want to do that. We're just going to cancel it altogether so that nobody's put out, right? So that was week after week. He would go, but it wouldn't be the same, right? And then his assistant coach was kind of like, no, I'll run practice. And I was actually friends with the assistant coach's wife. I went to high school with her. And it turned into, they were really upset at my husband for, not having practice. And we went to dinner to have a conversation about this. And, it was fine. But I just had to explain, like, look, this is part of the illness. And they're allowed to feel how they feel. I get it. I respect that you have passion about wanting your child to succeed in softball. I get it. But your feelings about something you are choosing not to educate yourself, they're not my burden to bear.
Yeah.
They're just not.
Yeah, I love that you knew that. Even though I cognitively know that, I still take it on. Like I still just feel like so embarrassed. Like I just it's like, oh my God, like I don't know. I know that cognitively it is. I think it's really hard to do.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's my logistician brain where I just look at things and go, if that's fact or feeling, I'm going to address fact first.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that, what you just said also ties into like the grief part of like what could have been, what would have been if my person was never diagnosed with this illness. Like where would we be as a couple, as a family? Like you would never be in those situations with the Little League team.
And the real Cody and the real Jeremy are actually amazing coaches.
Fantastic coaches.
Fantastic. It just happened to be during that particular season, but yeah. So yeah, you do grieve that. That is exactly right. And it is this ambiguous loss because he's right there. He was coaching, he was involved, but it just wasn't the same as it would have been if he weren't, in some sort of mood state.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to, I keep saying that a lot. I think it's really important, I guess, because I think it's really important. But anyway, I'm a broken record over here.
Yes.
It's all important. I should be screaming in capital letters. No, to recognize having those conversations with yourself, a friend, a family member, whatever, of what could have been, what should have been, what was, all of those, sort of thought process. Like that's normal. You're not playing the victim. Okay. Don't get caught up behind the, oh, well, you're just poor, pitiful me. No, like the truth is, this is the life that you are living, that you've chosen to be in and move forward with your person with, if that's your situation, right? Like it is okay to walk through that. This would have been different if blah, and recognize that like, yeah, it would have, because what that'll also do is likely your brain will start mapping out, well, yeah, but without my person, I wouldn't have this experience or this child or you know what I mean? Like it does help kind of like give you a full circle picture of, yeah, what could have been is this, but look at what actually is. Look at what you're actually getting to experience with your person, which leads me to the next phase of this navigation process is celebrating the presence or the present.
I love that.
Celebrating the now, which can be really, 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 really hard to do. Emphasis on the really.
I think it's okay to let go. I would recommend people let go of the expectation that you had set and just realize that, your loved one might not always be the same person you knew during stable times. Our expectation is what can really, really do you in, like how you expected it to be and then having something different. So just to grieve that, acknowledge that, and then yes, I just wanted, I guess, to say that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And expectations are different than standards. Let me be very clear.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes.
Personal standards exist.
And it doesn't mean you love them any less. It just means that you've accepted this is different. This is going to be different than how I initially anticipated it. And I think going through that is really helpful. If you can get to that point where you're like, okay, this isn't what I expected it was going to be, but I'm going to let go of those expectations. And then, yes, like you said, move into really enjoying the heck out of the present moments that are wonderful. Or even...
That's a great point.
Yeah, or even moments like, even when he's in episodes, like finding, even if it seems impossible, like inspirational speakers will be like, find something, something good happened in your day. Even if it was the sun came out. Even if it was you were able to get out of bed, even if you're just thankful for a bed, like find something. And it really does help shift your focus from, it can be very easy to just focus on all the bad because lots of bad stuff is happening and just be like, oh my God, 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 and like to get yourself out of that tailspin. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point because I think what I said before was that like, it can be really, 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 really difficult to celebrate the present. And I was going to say, why do you think that is? But you pretty much answered the question. Like, if you are still holding on to what you thought it is supposed to be, to what you thought your life is supposed to be, to what you thought this marriage, this relationship, this whatever that expectation is, like, you can't possibly be present and in the moment and celebrate being in the moment because you're holding on to this expectation of what it was. So Laura and I can't define whatever this expectation is that you may or may not be holding on to, because that's yours. You said it. And it could be as something as simple as, I expected my husband, partner, wife, whoever, to always be there for me when I'm sad. It could be something that simple that you're holding on to. And that expectation is what also fosters resentment.
Yes. Yes.
So two things can be true at the same time, right? I can expect my partner, my person, to be there for me when I'm sad, but I can also not expect my partner to be there for me when I'm sad when he is in an episode.
Yes, it's so important.
Two things can be true.
Gosh. That part right there is so important. I mean, just like going back to what I said, one of my expectations was I would work part-time, do most of the family household labor work, and that he would be the breadwinner. And I had to let go of that expectation at some point. And so when people ask me a lot, when I tell people it was a spiritual journey, it really was, because I had to let go of what I expected and find a new normal and find something that worked for us. And in the end, it almost brought me, like, I've talked about this, I think, before, my greatest blessings, because it forced me to own my own business. It forced me to think outside the box. It forced me to figure out how I could do this on my own during periods that he's not stable. And I would have never, and that has been a huge blessing. What I'm doing right now is a very big blessing in my life. And had I held on to that expectation, well, we'd probably be divorced, because then I'd go into another marriage with that same expectation. Or I would be, or be extremely resentful of him. So yeah, I think that's huge.
Yeah. I'll tell you my similar, like, I expected to have a marriage where we were equally providing not financially, but like both working, equally contributing to the family. My husband can't work. He has not worked since November of 2020. He's on Social Security disability. I get up and I go to work Monday through Friday, or let me rephrase that. I work Monday through Friday. Not every day do I have to go in office. That's the ADHD brain right there. Anyway, I have taken my medicine today, just for the record.
Suffice it to say, Brooke works Monday through Friday full time, y'all.
In my head, I was like, that's a lie. You just told a lie. You need to correct that lie. Oh, gosh. Anyway, so I work, right? And my husband cannot work. Did I ever expect that would be the dynamic? No. But I also have compassion and empathy for where he is. And I also had to let that go, because the reality was, if I was to force him to work, he may not be with us anymore.
Yeah.
May have been the driver to a grave, to be quite honest. I had to let that go. Now, are there days where I'm like, I really wish I could sleep in? Like, I want to. Of course. Yeah. But like, that's going to happen in any relationship. Like, oh, you're taking the day off. What are you going to do today? Like, just petty stuff. But ultimately, like, my husband is still contributing. We went through the process. He's on Social Security disability. Like, he is contributing, and his work experience up until he went out of work is the reason why he can contribute. So I respect the hell out of him putting in the time and effort before all of this happened. Because if he hadn't, our financial situation would be a heck of a lot worse than it is, right? Like, it just would be. So I had to let that go.
Yeah, we could keep going, but those are two good real life examples of how we've had to shift. And I did another talk where we had ambiguous grief, and then there was called a non-finite loss. And so you're grieving the loss of something that's hard to define. So like a non-finite is like not ending loss. So having someone who has a chronic disability like bipolar disorder, that's non-finite. There's no ending to it, and because of that, you don't get a lot of like sympathy or support from others because they just don't understand it.
Yeah, for sure. Like the very basic level, like, I need to clean my gutters. Oh, well, your husband can do that.
Yeah.
No, he can't.
Yeah, all those little things. Like,
no, he can't.
Yep.
And not right now, maybe in the future, but like, just as another point of reference, as somebody who deals with depression episodes a lot, like, the idea of my husband getting on the ladder is terrifying. No.
Yeah.
Because how far are you going to go?
Yeah.
Right.
That is terrifying.
You can't get on a ladder. I will just hire it out. Well, you're on a fixed income. Damn right I am. I have to get up there myself and do it, or I'll ask friends and family. So it's so intricate, Laura. It is an intricate experience.
That actually reminds me of 2 years ago. We're in an HOA now. We never used to be, but it was like going into February or March, and our Christmas lights and stuff still weren't down, and he had put all of those up manic, so it was quite the display. Quite the
I
ambitious
bet it was
display.
beautiful.
It was awesome, but also that's his job to do. And he was not allowed back at my house during that period of time due to episode related stuff. And I got
Sure.
an email from the HOA that said, you're going to get a violation unless you take these down. And yeah, I did. I went outside and I just felt so sorry for myself. And I was just like, this
Yeah.
isn't my job. And now I have to do this too. Like, this just sucks. And that's something so little in the grand scheme of things, taking down the Christmas lights, but it just hit me like a ton of
Sure.
bricks, just like, God, like, it's just like it kept coming.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it is hard.
It is hard. It is hard. That ambiguous grief, like you were angry, pissed, irritated, all the things, and your husband is still around. He still exists, but he is just unable to participate in life the way that you were used to him participating.
Exactly. Very hard. It goes back to I think I kind of want to end on this note, Brooke, and I've said this story before, but I became friends with someone in a Facebook group who had a husband with bipolar disorder, and they had like 8 kids. And I remember writing her once being like, Cody's stable, things are good, but like I can't enjoy. I just constantly worry that it's going to go bad again. Like, how do you get through that? And she was like, it was a very simple thing she said to me, but also very profound that it stuck with me all these years. She was like, oh, Laura, she's like, bipolar ruins so much. Don't let it ruin the good times too. And I was like, yeah. So again, just letting go. Yeah, there's it's complicated.
It is. It is. And grief and love often coexist, as we've discussed during this entire episode, right? But it's in the acknowledgement that this duality exists is what is going to allow you to hold space for both. So you can honor your feelings of loss, sadness, whatever it is that you're feeling, while also cherishing, loving, and wanting the bond that you have with your person. Because two things can be true at the same time. They really, really, really can. And I think the more we wrap our head around that, the more we allow ourselves to believe in the things that we know to be true, but question. So everybody's looking for, not everybody, I shouldn't say that, but a lot of the times, like Laura mentioned earlier, like, how do you do this? How do you cope with this? We get a lot of those questions.
Oh my gosh, so many.
And that's really, they're hard questions, but the answer, in my opinion, is very simple. Like there is no magic pill. There is no shiny unicorn for you to go grab that will be the end all be all answer. There just isn't. It's really just about separating your person from the illness and acknowledging what's going on, the time and space that you are in, and then dealing with it in the best way you can. Having resources, educating yourself, all the things that we continue to talk about, that's really it. That's how we've coped. We just didn't know that's what we were doing.
This is a journey. It's not even a marathon. This is a journey through life. And yeah, there's not going to be some magic advice that brings you through it. You're going to get through it. You're going to get through it. But yeah, there is not that one magic pill that'll fix it.
Yeah. One magic pill, one thing I could do, it just doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
But reaching out, using your resources, support groups, those are going to be so important because, as we've talked about, people who live the life we're living or have a similar experience are going to understand. And that alone is worth gold. Not having to justify, not having to explain, not having to hear, you should just leave your person. Like, if you can reach out to the people that will understand and support you, like, that is what I recommend. Because in the time and space we're talking about, while you're trying to deal with these feelings of loss and grief, having to also justify yourself for feeling these and try to make that make sense to somebody else, like, it's just going to be a lot of work.
Yes.
I don't want that for you all. I didn't want it for myself.
I mean, I think that's a great plug. If you aren't aware, we do have a Facebook group of our own that's moderated, and this is not a place where you could definitely have your rants or grievances, but it's not a place to bash. Everyone's welcome. So Bipolar Lines Pod Facebook group, you can find us there if you don't know anyone.
You want to watch us as we talk about these things, we're here on the YouTube. Same handle, Bipolar Lines Pod.
So we're dropping episodes every other Wednesday, and you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. So we're on Apple, we're on Spotify, like you mentioned, YouTube. And then if you do want to watch just little snips and clippets of our life, we both are on TikTok. I am the BP spouse on TikTok, and you are
at break_the stigma. So yeah, that's all for today. Great episode, Laura. I appreciate the topic. I think you picked a good one.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm so happy to be here. And as always, thanks to everyone for showing up for your person.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.